I worked out that one of my pieces has 1,200,000 joins in it. Think about lots of things whilst I'm going through it. I guess when I first started laser welding, it was quite a kind of exciting thing to be doing, but I've been doing it for sort of 4 or 5 years now, and it's quite a kind of monotonous job to be doing if you've got a piece that takes 2 weeks, and this is the only process that you're using, and you have to individually weld every single line that's in the work together. Just sitting in a really still position. Tapping my foot constantly for 2 weeks. Sometimes I can be working on one section and be thinking about something, and then I'll move around and work on another part of it, and then go back to the other section and remember what it was I was thinking about at the time when I made that bit. And it all kind of links together into a final piece of different kind of memories in a way, I guess. I've always had the kind of architecture and structural influence in my work. Initially, all my inspiration came from pylons and bridges. That's always kind of inspired me. What I wanted to do was to take the theory of the triangulation as a strengthening tool, and to then be able to make really small and delicate looking pieces of jewellery. Through my work, a lot of the pieces had balls rolling around them, and I think that kind of links in with the bridges and the pylons, and the fact that these are all kind of transportation systems. I come from a family of architects, so my dad and both my uncles are in the industry. So I've always kind of been shown architecture when I was a lot younger. We'd go around places and see different types of buildings. Some of the bracelets that I made were inspired by the space elevator, which was a concept by Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote a book, a kind of fiction book, which had the space elevator in it. And since then, they've been able to create a material using carbon nanotechnology strong enough to actually build the space elevator. I was producing jewellery which tube-shaped with and really strong because of the triangles in it, like the carbon nanotubes. I wrote my dissertation on Buckminster Fuller, which had a big effect on me. just looking at his geodesic domes and his architecture, and I was able to then move my work forward and to produce more accurate structures than I was producing before. He had the concept that if you build a geodesic dome big enough, then the frame will be lighter than the air inside it, so therefore in theory you could have floating cities that moved around the world. But he actually only had a couple of drawings, being as it was just a concept of just the domes kind of floating in the skies. So where I brought the work forward was to actually think about what the cities would look like. My pieces are quite visual, really tiny cities, but I thought it'd be really great to have the sounds of them as well. Because they are kind of set in the future, I made quite a kind of futuristic soundtrack. If some kind of disaster happened or whatever on the planet, and we have to move somewhere else, we could put our cities inside the domes and just lift them up. What I wanted to put forward through the work this year was what these cities would actually be like to live in, and the effect that they would have on the people and the culture and the society if these kind of housing developments were built. And I visualised those as being quite sort of restricted, paranoid cities with big tower blocks and sort of lots of crime, and maybe people sort of feel quite restricted and kind of caged into those areas. And so it's kind of the dark view of the future. Floating around the city, would we actually be territorial about being in a dome rather than fighting over bits of land? But I did also want to introduce a kind of bright view of the future as well, which was much more kind of beautiful cities with kind of arches and bridges and things in them. I think that if the people on the ground eventually moved into these domes and they took it on as a new start, I would hope that they would learn and cultivate nice grasslands in the sky and places that we could go, like the ring that I made, like the ski slope dome, sort of mountainous and really beautiful areas. And the last ring that I made was the kind of, I guess it was probably the one that I would most want to live in, which is much more optimistic about the future. And the spaces are a lot more sort of beautiful. There's arches and bridges between the buildings, and I guess it's quite kind of fantasy-like as well. And you know, as humans we could make this, but it's whether we can actually get together to make really amazing, beautiful projects.